The scales tremble. A heart lies on one side, a feather on the other. I stand in a chamber where time holds no meaning, where the living dare not tread. The jackal-headed god watches unblinking. His hands do not shake. They never do. Tonight you will witness the judgment that awaits us all. Welcome, traveler. This is the Myth Wanderer. The air here tastes of myrrh and incense, thick enough to coat your lungs. I am in the Hall of Two Truths, deep within the realm of Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Torches flicker along walls covered in hieroglyphs, each one a prayer, a plea, a promise to the gods. Before me stands Anubis, the lord of the sacred land. His form is neither fully beast nor fully man, but something divine, a being who transcends both. Obsidian fur catches the torchlight. Golden eyes pierce through shadow. He is draped in the finest linen, adorned with gold that speaks of his role as Egypt's most sacred guardian. But Anubis was not always here, standing vigil over the dead. His story begins in chaos, in betrayal, in a love that should never have been. And it ends with a purpose so profound that 5,000 years later, his image still watches over tombs, still guards the journey we must all take. Listen. The weighing ceremony begins. Long before the halls of judgment, before the scales were forged, Anubis came into this world through tragedy. The desert god Set, violent, cunning, consumed by jealousy, desired what was not his. Nephthys, the goddess of mourning, was his wife. But her heart yearned for another. Osiris, the good king, the green god of life and fertility, Set's own brother. One night, hidden from the eyes of gods and mortals, Osiris and Nephthys came together. Their union was brief, forbidden, electric with consequences. When Nephthys discovered she carried a child, terror gripped her. Set's rage was legendary. If he learned of this betrayal, the Nile itself would run red. So she did what desperate gods do. She abandoned the infant among the reeds, hoping the waters would be kinder than her husband. But Isis found him. The great goddess, wife of Osiris, sister of Nephthys, she should have destroyed this evidence of her husband's infidelity. Instead, she looked into those golden eyes and saw not betrayal, but potential. She saw a soul that would become greater than the circumstances of his birth. She raised him as her own. She named him Anubis, Inpu, the jackal. The young god grew in the shadows of the desert, learning to walk between worlds. Jackals were scavengers, eaters of the dead, creatures that prowled the boundaries of burial grounds. Anubis understood these places instinctively. He felt at home where others felt fear. And then came the murder. Set's jealousy finally erupted. He could not bear his brother's goodness, his people's love, his very existence. At a great feast, Set unveiled a magnificent chest, perfectly sized, beautifully crafted. He declared it a gift to whoever could fit inside. When Osiris lay down in the chest, trusting, always trusting, Set sealed the lid. The Nile became Osiris's tomb. I watch as Anubis receives the news. His reaction is not what you might expect. There is no rage, no cry of vengeance. Instead, there is focus, clarity, purpose crystallizing in an instant. He speaks to Isis, "I will find him, and I will bring him back." The search spans kingdoms. Isis and Anubis travel beyond Egypt's borders, following whispers and omens. They find the chest in Byblos, trapped within a great tree, transformed into a pillar in a foreign king's palace. But Set is not finished. When they return Osiris to Egypt, when Isis leaves to gather sacred herbs for resurrection, Set strikes again. He finds the body, and in an act of ultimate desecration, he tears Osiris apart, 14 pieces scattered across Egypt, from delta to cataract. This is when Anubis truly becomes the god we know. Piece by piece, Anubis and Isis recover the scattered remains. And here, in his grief, Anubis creates something that will change death itself. I watch him work through the night. His hands move with precision that speaks of divine inspiration. He has become the first embalmer, the first to perform mummification. Natron salts to preserve flesh, sacred oils to anoint skin, linen strips wound with prayers, each organ carefully removed, preserved, protected. He does not merely prepare a body, he prepares a vessel for eternal life. Anubis discovers that death is not an ending but a threshold, and he, born of forbidden love, raised in shadow, at home among jackals and tombs, he is the perfect guide for that crossing. When he finishes, Osiris rises. Not fully to life, but to something beyond it, Lord of Duat, Judge of the dead, the god who conquered mortality itself. And Anubis takes his place at his father's side, guardian of all who follow. I return to the Hall of Two Truths. The ceremony I witnessed at the beginning continues, eternal and unchanging. Anubis leads the deceased forward. His touch is gentle. These souls are not prisoners but travelers, and he is their guide. He adjusts the scales with absolute precision, the heart on one side, containing every deed, every choice, every moment of a lived life. Maat's feather on the other, symbol of truth, of cosmic order, of justice itself. If the heart is pure, lighter than the feather, the soul passes into paradise, into the field of reeds where the blessed dwell forever. If the heart is heavy with cruelty, with lies, with malice, the devourer waits. Amit, the chimera, consumes it. Obliteration, the second death, complete and final. But here is what most do not understand. Anubis does not judge. That is Osiris's role, and the role of the 42 divine judges who witness each ceremony. Anubis does something more profound. He ensures the process is fair. The scales balance perfectly because he makes them balance. No soul is condemned unjustly. No soul escapes what it has earned. He is the guardian of truth in the moment of ultimate vulnerability. I see it now, why jackals, why those scavengers of the desert became sacred, because Anubis protects the dead from those who would defile them, just as jackals guard their territory, because he prowls the boundary between this world and the next, ensuring safe passage. The god born of scandal became the most trustworthy of all divinities. I leave the Hall of Two Truths, ascending back toward the land of the living, but Anubis's presence lingers. In every funeral rite, every embalmer's prayer, every tomb that still stands against the erosion of millennia. The ancient Egyptians understood something we often forget. Death is not the opposite of life. It is part of life. And we need guides for that journey, protectors for that vulnerable passage between heartbeats and eternity. Anubis still weighs hearts. In every moral choice, in every moment we're tested, we're placing something on those scales. The question isn't whether we'll be judged. The question is, when your heart is finally weighed, will it be light enough to pass? Until we meet again, traveler, may your heart be light as a feather.